Good morning. Unusually coming in on a Saturday morning because we missed out a couple of our lives this week, so we haven't had our full quota of playing with this Tropical Oasis. So I did say that I would come in this morning and tomorrow morning and do catch-ups on the lives that we haven't had the chance to do. But rest assured, the most important ingredient to today's live is the ingredient you can see in front of you, is my cup of tea. I have had more than my fair share of challenges with technical equipment today and this week, and that is continuing. So let's hope that the phone is working beautifully this morning, that this video will go fine, and I can then go on to carry on trying to sort out all the other difficulties that have risen from other technical issues. So morning Sarah, morning Janice, lovely to see you. So yes, if you're not sure in what day it is, if you're totally lost, it is in fact Saturday morning, but we're coming on to have a play to make up for the two we missed. So I'm going to have a slurp of this cup of tea while it's still hot, because it is much needed. Okay, so where have we got to so far this week playing with this suite? We started off sort of with the week being a little bit topsy-turvy because morning Beryl, because we had a bank holiday Monday, so we did something different on Monday. We did those pop-up poppy cards. I just realised that my glass mat is still covered in ink and things from yesterday. So we did a live class last night using stencils. Morning Sarah, and you will get your, Sarah is waiting for the video link to come through so that she can have a play with her stencils when hers arrive. But that's one of my technical difficulties, but you will get you will be getting a link to that class and those techniques before the end of the day, if it is the last thing I do. But there we are. Let's clean that mat up. Okay, look at that. Beautiful. That was very inky, wasn't it? Morning, Megan. So where have we got to so far this week? So we had a bank holiday Monday when we played with poppies. So on Tuesday we did a bit of casing the catalogue and we created these 3 cards. So 1, 2 and 3, so they were really pretty. That's the one with all the little flowers in the background. And then we had a couple of days break because my phone broke. And then we came back yesterday and we had a play with these. So we made our lovely pineapple with all its added colour and sponging and things in. And we made a very different sort of card, not at all tropical. It was an autumnal card. And here is the tropical suite that we're using. So the Tropical Oasis suite with these lovely papers, the stamp set and dies. As you can hear, it is raining today, so apologies that I'm going to be doing battle with rain on the conservatory roof. You also get, no, that's the birthday bonanza suite, Helen. Do you know, you see, days when you think that's because my middle piece have come out. There's the papers, that makes much more sense. Stamp set and dies, an embossing folder, these little trinkets, they're really lovely, the braided burlap trim, the memory and more cards, and then that stays on ink is in there as well. So yeah, tropical time, a timeless tropical bundle, that's what we're having a play with. So those are the cards we've made so far. So on to today. Now I've grabbed a couple of different things for today. The first thing that I've grabbed is some of our vellum. So we have some coloured vellum, which is in the annual catalogue. Oh, that's a bit sticky, that bit. We'll cut that bit off in a minute. So the coloured vellum comes in these sort of 3, got your old olive and your so saffron and your petal pink vellum, and I've obviously just got some little oddments of that, and I've also picked up a sheet of just plain, if vellum can ever be plain vellum. So I thought we would have a bit of a play on doing some vellum flowers first of all. So let's grab our stamp set and take our flowers. So we'll have this nice big flower and the smaller flower. And I think we'll do, let's have a look at my bits of vellum, what pieces are big enough. I think that piece will perfectly fit that piece. So we'll have a large petal pink flower. We'll come back to the green because that's obviously will be for our leaves. And then using this yellow, we'll have a large yellow flower. And then I think we'll do some small ones on the ordinary vellum. So let's get some blocks out. Put that one on there and that one on there. And then the other thing we're going to get is some Versamark and some white embossing powder. So let's start with this petal pink one. Let's put down some embossing buddy. Apologies if I feel as if I'm having to shout over the top of the rain. It is a very grey day here today, but we have actually needed the rain. It's been a number of weeks since we've had any rain, which is very unusual here. I know that's not necessarily unusual everywhere in the world, but that is unusual for us. So although, you know, we're looking at it and thinking, yuck, the gardens will be glad of it. Right, I'm going to take some white embossing powder and sprinkle that on there. And then before I set my heat gun off to compete with the rain and me, I will do a similar big flower. Does it good, Megan? I'll do a similar big flower on this yellow. Megan thinks the rain sounds soothing. So embossing buddy, large flower, embossing powder, and I thought this would just give them a different look again, slightly softer look. So that's our two large flowers, and then we're going to do some small ones on this piece of vellum. I think I'll trim the piece of vellum down to start with. Ooh. Put that to one side. And then we'll take our little flower and we'll stamp 1. Morning, Jeanette. And 2. I can just about see where those flowers are sitting on there, enough to make sure I'm not overlapping them anyway. 1, 2 and 3. So let's sprinkle some embossing powder on there. We didn't embossing buddy that, but I think we've pretty well got away with it. Okay, I'm going to heat those up and we'll come back and do some leaves in a minute. So along with soothing rain, we're now going to have heat gun. It will warm my hands up. It's quite chilly this morning. I have put my heater back on. It's not quite warmed everything up yet. Now with vellum, it is going to turn quicker than with normal card because the paper itself heats up more quickly. Well, there's the white embossed on the plain vellum. and the yellow. Last but not least, and then I think we'll take that leaf that we used yesterday, that nice big leaf, and we'll ink that up. And we'll do, I think, probably another 3. 3s are always good. 3s of everything. I'd put my embossing powder safely out of the way so I didn't knock it and then forgot where I'd put it. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. Again, I didn't embossing buddy that, did I? But again, I think we've got away with it. Okay, so there's our 3 leaves. Let's heat that up. Well, they are going to be, morning Valerie, they're going to be quite frosty looking, but quite pretty. Right, so let's have a look at our dies. So we've got the big flower, the small flower, and the leaves. So I'll just die cut those out. I'm going to put the lid on my white embossing powder so that that doesn't scatter all over. Having to rebuild my big shot. We had some weird and wonderful layers going on last night in our stencil class. So we were playing around with, I think we ended up with about 23 or even more different backgrounds created with stencils. Right, why are you not going through there? Big Shot doesn't want to feed this morning. It's like, no, we don't normally do this on a Saturday. What's going on? This is my day off. That's it. It's never its day off. I don't think it ever has a day off completely. 1 leaf. There's always some little thing I think, oh, I could just do that. Two leaves. Now what we could have done with the leaves is we could have, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, we could have done those in clear embossing powder, and then that would have just given them a shiny effect. But I quite like that sort of frosty green. Let's die cut our 3 little flowers. This is one of those dies that isn't symmetrical, so you do have to keep twiddling it until you get the right direction. But having got the right direction for one, we should be in the right direction for all of them, because I stamped one after another. So there's one white one. Two white ones. And that wiggled. So there's our three white vellum flowers. They might not show up very well on that background, but let's do our big flowers. So we'll die cut those two. And again, the flower isn't symmetrical, so you do have to find which is the right direction. So if you see what I mean, that's obviously right, but if I was to go round a bit, that obviously doesn't fit. So you do have to twist your die round until you get the right orientation to actually cut your flower. So it's not a symmetrical flower. There is only one way that it will cut that properly. Now, when my vellum has curled up a little bit, it's knocking that die off kilter, and I could get my magnetic base plate out, but I'm just instead going to take a bit of low tack tape and just anchor it down so it's not wiggling about. Stay, little die. There's one. Let's lift that off of there and line that up on here. Now I'm just going to trim that down a bit, because I'll take it across like that. Pop that away. And there's our other big flower. So they're rather lovely. So they're very subtle sort of colours. Morning, Emma. So some of the things that you can do with vellum. I'm going to bring in my piercing mat. First of all, you'll be able to see those better sitting on there than you will. That's better than you will on that sort of glass background. So there's our flowers. Your petal pink, your so saffron, and then your three white ones. So with vellum, you can use vellum a bit like you would use parchment if you've ever done any sort of parchmenty craft. So to add a bit more sort of colour into these flowers, one of the things we can do is turn it over, and this is the white one, and I've just got the ball part of my embossing tool that comes from the score, or there is the embossing tool as well that comes with your take your pick. So let's find that. So you've also got this embossing tool that can go in the end of your take your pick. So let's pick that one up. So just by rubbing over, don't know how well that is going to show up. Oh, I think under here I've got a bit of black card. So can you see how that's just added a bit more colour into that back of that white just by going over with your embossing tool? And obviously you can be far more careful, and the harder you rub, the whiter it's going to become. So that is just all to do with the way that you're stretching the paper and the fibres. It just makes it that bit whiter. And the other thing, of course, you can do is go in with your watercolour pencils. So I am going to take my Daffodil Delight one. So this is all on the reverse. So this isn't on the side that I've embossed. I've turned all this over. I'm just going to add. It's very need it to come up slightly, I think, before you're going to see that. Just going to add a bit of colour onto the back. Hi, Glenda. It just is a little bit sort of shining through behind there. Obviously, the more you come up onto the white that's not embossed, the more you'll see it. I don't want to come all the way to the end because I want some of it to stay as white. So there we have a white flower with just that little bit of yellow showing through from behind. Compared to one that's had nothing done to it. So that obviously would like a nice something in the middle of there. So we'll find some sort of a gem. Don't do what I've just done and press too hard and then crack it, but we'll find a cover up for that. So this is just very quickly going in with this tool on the reverse, adding in some extra white. And for anybody that's done parchment craft, I don't think I would just be devastated. They do such intricate work and pricking and cutting them all out. If I then made a mistake right at the end, I'd be devastated. It doesn't just have to be watercolour pencils, this could be your blends. Stamping white markers might take a little bit longer to dry. You could use inks, you could use sponge daubers, sponge on the back of this. All sorts of ways of adding in a bit more colour. So white flower number 3. Let's make sure we've got it on the back. So I'm obviously not taking anything like the time with this that you would take. Let's go back to this ball. Actually, this ball on the take your pick tool is better still because it's very ball-like and perfect for this job. And actually just having the white embossed on it gives it a beautiful sort of feel of parchment craft as well. Let's add in some yellow. Morning, Jackie. So the other thing I will do with that tool is I'm just going to bring it in on this side and sort of give this a bit of shape as well, because by having coloured in on the other side it's curved it outwards. Just running my ball tool along these leaf edges has curled it back upwards a little bit. It is like Pergamano. Yep, that's exactly it. And in not anything like as intricate. Pergamano is just so intricate. Beautiful. I'm always stunned and amazed. But I just imagine that if I'd done all of that sort of grid work and all that pricking and everything else, and then at the last minute snipped a wrong bit off, I think I'd be devastated. So there's our little white flowers, just with a little hint of yellow coming through the background. And we'll find a little something yellow to go in the middle. Likewise with our petal pink. Now then, we haven't got a petal pink colour, but we have got, let's go something like the Calypso Coral watercolour pencil. And you can see it just gives it a bit of a blush on that side. So this is the back. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the back particularly. What matters is what it looks like on the front. Might bring in a little bit around this sort of petal edge. There we go. And let's again just bring our ball end of our tool and just bring it along these petal lines and give that a little bit of shape. It all works by the fact that you're just stretching the fibres in the paper. So that's giving it a little bit of a curl, and you've got a little bit of a blush coming through there. And then I think we'll go back to our Daffodil Delight for this one. And we'll bring in a bit around this edge. And a bit of shaping. Okay, so we've got our vellum flowers. It's just going to run that tool along there a little bit just to give that a bit of a curve. There we go. We need something to go in the centre of these flowers. Let's have a look. Rummage around in my shall we actually have some fluffy centres for the big ones? And no, I'm not sure about pom-poms. Oh, actually, our gilded gems would look quite nice in there, wouldn't they? Lovely. Hello, Wendy. So we've got our collection of vellum flowers with their bits of shading and a bit of shaping. Now the decision is, what are we going to put them on? Now, do we want to go we'll just have a that's quite pretty, isn't it? That sort of yep, I think I quite like that paper. And I think for this one, I think we're going to go, it's going to need to be bigger than a standard size card. So I have cut that to 4.5 by 6.5. I think I might actually dig out a bit of that green paper and cut that to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and we're going to go for a 5 by 7 card base. I think that's quite nice, those two different papers with their two different textures, sort of all quite sort of natural colours. And then card base wise, do we want to go white? White's a bit stark, isn't it? Do we want to go something like, oh, let me untangle my microphone wire that's now buried under endless bits and pieces. Included being tangled up in a webcam. Excuse me while I just untangle myself. And go on a hunt for some coloured cards. So do we want that one or do we want that one? Let's come back and decide. So what do we think? Would we like to go So Saffron? That's quite pretty. Morning, Lisa. We're doing some, actually no, I think it is So Saffron. We're white embossing onto some parchment, white vellum and coloured vellum to create a different sort of look. Now we're making a 5x7 card this time. So in order to make a 5x7 card, we need to cut our cardstock at 7 inches. And then this is a bit dog-eared on both ends, so I'm going to trim that off that end. And then I want it to be 10 inches. So it's 10 inches this way by 7 inches that way. And we're going to score that. Just bring in my school board, and we're working in inches. So let's take the metric board off and score that at 5, like that. And then we have a 5x7 inch card, and certainly here in the UK 5x7 inch envelopes are easily come buyable. They're easily available. And let's move that white cardstock as well. Don't want that. We decided white was too stark. So that's looking as if that's coming together quite nicely. We've also got our braided burlap. And we might add in some of that as well. So let's start, just gently push that to one side. Start bringing this together. So I'm going to put this paper onto this paper. Let's try and make it a little less wonky. And then, oh, isn't that just beautiful? That zap of colour. We've seen that a couple of times this week now, have glue stuck to it. We are going to be using it in all its glory in a minute. And that's that. These little flower centres here are self-adhesive, so let's nearly run out of these actually. I'm going to perhaps get some more. I don't know whether they will carry over. They are fun because they are fluffy. So they do look really quite realistic. The new phone is fab. It was just a straight replacement, Megan. So it was like for like, insurance jobby. So it's all very familiar, which is often a good thing. It is at the moment. Yeah, my brain seems to be fried at the moment. So anything that's familiar is good. Hence, I can come in here and my craft room is all familiar. I think it's my age comes to us all. Right, just put a little glue dot on the back of those, and I think I'm going to put a dimensional on the back of those, so that will be nicely hidden behind those flower centres. But there's not much weight involved in these flowers. They're quite a big flower, but they are quite light. Now we've got our little glue dots on the back of here, so let's just scatter some of these around. We'll have one here. In fact, I think we'll have another one possibly coming down here, and then we'll put a glue dot on the back of our leaves as well. One of the things I do need to do this morning is have a good old tidy up, I think. Finish packing some kits that need to go out and then have a good tidy up. And then no doubt I will unearth my glue dots. Right, let's get rid of this wire from this heat gun. Move the heat gun to one side. So that's looking rather lovely. I'm thinking with this burlap trim, what I might do is I'm going to take another glue dot and pop it on there and bring it round into a loop. Only you would stick on there rather than on my finger. And then with another glue dot we'll stick one loop in there, and I think we'll make this one a slightly smaller loop. That was a bit too big of a loop. Another glue dot on the back there, and we'll have this one coming up there, and then I think we need another little one at the top there. And here a little glue dot. Stick you on there and stick you over into a loop, and then a glue dot on the back of the loop, and we will tuck that one in there. And then we just need some sort of a greeting coming on down the bottom here, I think. And I think it's such a nice big card. That nice big greeting will be perfect. Now, over to the side here, I have got a soft suede ink pad, which I think will work quite nicely, and we'll do that on some saffron card to match our card background. And trim that off there. Now shall we go for a banner end for a I'm actually quite tempted just to tear it. Yeah. And then perhaps we'll just take one of our vellums. Let's go with some of the old olive. See how long that is. It's about 9, so let's have a piece that's 10 centimetres. And this is 10 by 2. And we'll also tear the end of that. Just to have that down there. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of Tombow on there. So I've put Tombow on the back of my mat. I'm going to stick that warning div, stick that to that, and then and some more Tombow in that bottom half of there where that's not going to show through that vellum. Like that. So that's a very big, a 5 by 7 card with all of that onto vellum. Those leaves might have looked better had I done clear embossing. What I could do is, if I wanted to, would be go in with a stamping blend on the top and add some colour into that embossing powder if I wanted to tone that down a bit. But that's looking very different again from the other flowers, just having done them in vellum. So the other little card I'm going to do, and I'm aware that time is speeding on because that took us a little while, but I've already cut some of these flowers. So this is using this really, really beautiful flowery paper, and I'm just, thank you Robin, I'm just going to cut, I'm not cutting those sticky out bits on those stamens, I'm afraid they're being lopped off. I'm just cutting out some of these flowers. These were some little squares of paper that I'd cut up for a class that are left over. That's why they're in these little squares. We don't want to waste them. So we're cutting out just some of these clusters of flowers. So again, I'm going to chop off the top of that flower just because I could have sat and chopped around it, but for speed we won't on this occasion. So in stark contrast to the pastel colours of the vellum, this is really bright and this one here. So no stamping, no colouring, that's all been done for us. We're just chopping it out. papers don't have to just be used as squares and rectangles, and they've got pretty patterns like this on them. Dig them out. I think this one will sort of cut round there. Not sure how many of these we're going to need, but we will. That little flower there. Right. I think I'm going to we'll have a petal pink background, I think, so I'm going to cut this so that it is 4.5 inches square. Like that. And then, depending on how many flowers I've got, I might cut that down a bit and make it a smaller version. Yes, looking at time, let's cut that down and let's make it a 3.5 inch square. We'll go for a 4-inch card. Right, so now I'm going to lay my flowers on here. So I want them coming up quite close but not overlapping. May do a little bit of fiddling and changing round in a minute. A bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Left a bit, right a bit, fire. Going to trim that little flower off of there because I think I can use that to fill in elsewhere. And the same with that little one. Fiddly, fiddly, fiddly. There. Oh, don't move now. Right. Again, this isn't going to be as perfect as you would do it if you've got all the time in the world. But we have got a nice lot of flowers stuck onto our piece of card, and then I'm going to take, well, I've got a little bit of this somewhere, but obviously it's gone walkabouts. I'm taking a piece of press and seal. Now this isn't something that you can buy in the shops here easily, in terms of in the supermarket shops. It is something you have to order in especially. But there are other things that people have used for this technique, but I've got a roll of press and seal. And what press and seal is, you use it as a if you've never seen it before, use it as a food type wrap, but it's got just a little bit of tackiness to it, so it's slightly sticky. So yeah, floating dies, that's what we're going to do, Jackie. So what I am currently doing with this piece of float and seal is I'm sticking it on my leg, just to deliberately pick up a little bit of dust, and just to make it a little less tacky. I haven't got a woolly jumper on, but that's good, because you don't want it to stick so hard that it never ever comes off again. So I am just laying that press and seal over the top of our flowers, and then I'm going to pick it up, and what will happen is our flowers are now all stuck. Oh, apart from that little one just there that came from in here, didn't it? Got you. Right, so now we've got our press and seal with all of our flowers stuck on it. I'm going to lift that up now and lay it onto my cutting mat, and somewhere in a moment of being organised, just here I've got the bee stitched dies out. Now, just wondering, yeah, I think we might get away with doing it that way. So these are nice heart-shaped dies. And what we're going to do is we're going to die cut through the press and seal and through our flowers. So I've got my base mat there, my flowers and my die. So let's pick that up. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we should have, let me lift that off, an outside with our flowers on, and I'm sure that you've all seen this method done before, and an inside with our flowers on. And we need just to ease that off of the mat. So let me turn round my take a pick tool to get the little spatula, and let's just run that little spatula underneath. Oh no, Angie, still no phone charger. If it's anything like us at the moment, our post is all over the place. So we have got out inside heart. Let's move this back out of the way, because then what we need is some little dimensionals. Now, this again wasn't my tip. It was a tip that I saw somebody else do that I thought that is just genius. I am going to take my basic black marker and I'm just going to run down these backs of these dimensionals. And then we are going to, we'll start with this bit. We're going to take our flowers here. And we are going to put lots of dimensionals on the back. What I should have done actually is chop this down earlier. What you will see is all of these dimensionals now have a stripe on the back. And that stripe will be visible on the back until I take the backing off. And what it means is when you've got lots of dimensionals like we're going to have on here, you can see which ones you've taken the backs off. I'm wondering if that one has wandered slightly. You might need to realign that one. Let's just bring it in a little bit. And I think that's going to stick out the edge. Right, so we've got lots of backs on the back of there. And this is where you can then see which ones you've taken off, which is just genius. Wasn't my idea, as I said. But it was such a good one. You have to share it. If you just put one or two on, it's not an issue. But when you've got lots like this, you are thinking, right, which ones have I taken the backs off and which ones haven't I? But it's instantly visible because it's the ones that no longer have a stripe on the back. So you will want a permanent marker to do that because it is quite plasticky. So, or a pen, you will want something like a one of our stamping blends works perfectly, or a Sharpie, something like that. Oh, sorry, Angie and everybody, I'm wobbling you around. It's obviously been a week of phone problems this week then, Angie. If you're still not got your charger, and it is amazing how much you miss having them. Last one with a stripe on. Okay. Quick slurp of my probably cold tea. So what we're going to do now is going to turn this over and carefully lay that down on our card. And then we need to gently remove our press and seal. You can reuse. Oh, that one's come. Oh, that's why that's come off. It's not got a dimensional on it. Let's pop one on. You can add that back into place. That's not a problem. And then take my big scissors. And we'll just trim around the edge of here, trim off the excess bits. And then have your frame, your floating frame of flowers, which is really rather pretty. Will that sit in there? I do believe it will. Let's grab our lovely lipstick ink pad, because we've got nice lovely lipstick colours in that background. And we will stamp that in the centre. This is where you don't want that to go wrong. Beautiful. Does need a bit of something else in there, doesn't it? Oh, I think I've got just a smidgen. I've not got much of the lovely lipstick ribbon left, but I have got a bit of a smidgen. Enough. Certainly enough for a bow, just there. And let's see if we can find some having a little hunt to see if I can find some of the in colour in my hand just there. Have a I'll cut a, let's see, that was a 3.5, so let's go with a 3/4 inch, or around about 9.5 centimetres, so sort of 9.5 centimetres. And we'll sit that on there like that, and then I'm going to cut a 9.9 centimetre, scored at 9.9 centimetres. Swap trimmers. Right, white card base. There we go. That's very pretty, isn't it? And of course, the really nice thing about this technique is that we've got our one card. Then without very much effort at all, we're going to be able to create by the time when I've put all the dimensionals on the back and everything else, you've got then a second card. So this one gives you your outside border, this one gives you your inner, and you get 2 cards from one technique. So I won't carry on and do all the backs on that one. I will do them afterwards and then post you a picture. So 2 very different cards. Again, we do like to see how we can stretch these sweets and products and see how many things we can do with it. So there's our pastel-y vellum card, and there is our really bright and bold floating die technique, that one's called, although we haven't cut any dies with that. We've just cut the paper. We've cut those flowers out of the paper. So 2 very different cards using that suite of products. And I will come in again tomorrow morning, and tomorrow morning we're going to have a play with the Memory and More cards, because we've not had a play with those yet. I'll make that up into a card as well, and then tomorrow, as I say, we'll come in and we'll have a play with the Memory and More cards. So thank you for joining me on this Saturday morning. I think it's time for another cup of tea on this wet and rainy day. It's my plan to work this morning, and then this afternoon I think I might catch up because the online musical from Andrew Lloyd Webber this weekend is Phantom of the Opera, and I've never seen Phantom of the Opera, so I will be catching that up online this afternoon, I think, with feet up and a cup of tea. Might even make a biscuit or a cake or something to go with it. So I think that's my plan for the day. You all have a good one, and I will see you tomorrow.